It looks like an Idaho teen football player is going to walk free after all the evidence pointed to the fact that he sodomized an athlete along with 2 other friends in what seemed like a racially motivated attack. This is the person who is John R.K. Howard. He's a transfer to an Idaho school, the Idaho school where this took place. He pled guilty Friday to 1 felony count of injury to a child. And here's a description of the attack. It occurred in October 23rd, 2015, when he and 2 other students, quote, pretended to offer the victim a hug and then held him down and sodomized him with a coat hanger, KTVB reports. A third attacker then kicked the coat hanger several times, forcing it farther into the victim's body and causing rectal injuries that required treatment at a hospital. And it looks like he's gonna just walk away. Here is the quote from Deputy Attorney General Casey Hemmer. He did call this behavior egregious, but he said, quote, "We don't believe it's appropriate to Mr. Howard to suffer the consequences of a sex offender." Instead, the prosecution recommended 300 hours of community service, and he's allowed to maintain his innocence. And the idea that, we'll talk about it, there is still a $10 million civil suit pending, but that is focused more against the school, who, according to this, the civil suit, Mr. Howard is a relative of prominent individuals in the community, and at least in part due to his athletic ability and community connections, the defendants ignored or were deliberately indifferent to the behavior of Mr. Howard, which included aggression, taunting, or bullying the plaintiff and other students in the district. And the victim was a mentally disabled black teen. So
I'm sure there's a lot of outrage about this story on Fox News. I'm sure they're covering it all day today.
Right.
And that they're blaming an entire group of people for the actions of this one person. Look, the story, there's an obvious reason why we're doing this story. I think it's pretty transparent. Something hideous happened yesterday in Chicago where 4 black adults, young adults, essentially kidnapped and tortured a mentally disabled white guy. And justice was swift. They were arrested immediately. They are I have no doubt in my mind that they will face prison time. No doubt. And that's what should happen. That's absolutely what should happen. That's what should have happened in this case as well. Regardless of this person's race, regardless of this person's socioeconomic status, he should be in prison because he sodomized someone, he tortured someone, he exploited someone who is mentally disabled, and no one cares. No one cares. We're not reporting this to make a political point, although there is a political point to take away. We're doing this because there is obviously a very clear double standard in our justice system, and not just that, a clear double standard in public opinion. And for anyone who's not as outraged by this story, there's something wrong with you. Because regardless of what the victim's skin color is, no one in this country should be treated like this. No one anywhere should be treated like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what troubles me. One of the many things that troubles me about this case is the instinct from the Deputy Attorney General to say that I don't think this really qualifies as a sex crime. Like, what is it? Like, tell the victim that. There's, a lot of children bully each other, and a lot of children get in fist fights, but this is really messed up. Like, this is extremely, perversely messed up. Like, I've wanted to beat people up, but I've never been like, you know what I want to do? This. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is a prevalence of excuses on the side of the defendant. And so let's take this away. Let's say it's not racially motivated, it's not sexually motivated. Then what are we left with? We're left with a very dangerous sociopath who has really expressed no remorse for his actions, would like to maintain his innocence. That's part of the plea deal moving forward, is that he can say that he's innocent, but then also contend that he probably would be found guilty if he were to go on trial. Like the agreement that they were able to come to with the state district attorney is incredibly troublesome. The attorney on the side of the plaintiff has been representing sexual assaults for up to 40 years. And he said that he absolutely protests this decision from the state attorney Attorney General's office. And he should, and he's baffled by how this was able to move forward. And I just think that when people who are saying, well, he's not a sex offender, he doesn't deserve to be a sex offender, okay, take that out of it. He's still a cruel person who is not,
He tortured a mentally disabled person.
He's still torturing someone.
Okay, if you want to take the labels out of it and just focus on the physical crime that took place,
happened.
He put a coat hanger in a mentally disabled person's body. And caused rectal injuries as a result of that, okay? If you don't want to focus on sex crimes, if you don't want to focus on race, you don't want to focus on anything, focus on the hideousness of what occurred physically. You think that person should walk free? And by the way, the reason why I want justice in this case is not only for the victim, but to prevent this type of behavior from happening in the future. You let people get away from doing this type of stuff, it emboldens them, okay? If they're told, oh, I come from, a certain type of family, I have certain type of connections, I can get away with these types of things. You think he won't do it again? Yeah. I mean, come on.
And I agree with your rule of law interpretations. For those of you who like to espouse rule of law, that would be it. That would be like, there's a law, you can't do that.
I also think that any actions or crimes that take place against mentally ill people should be considered hate crimes.
Absolutely.
I think they definitely belong in that category. And I know that there's an obligation for me to speak up about the racial component because I feel that pressure all the time, and that's why you call me cunt and tell me you want to sodomize me with a hanger. But I just think that for all of the people who were on my Facebook page, who I think successfully deleted, that were outraged with the entire black race about what happened yesterday, who today decided to post about Arnold Schwarzenegger and talk about other things because this black life didn't matter to you. It's like I always say, as the mother of black children, it's something that we always have to worry about. I mean, to send your mentally disturbed child to school and for him to be attacked, those of us who have been sexually assaulted are very open about what it is. When someone violates your body, when somebody takes charge of your body, whether it is anally or whatever it is a sexual assault. Like you said, you would never think about saying, oh, I'm gonna drive a hanger up somebody's butt. Like that is sick and that is twisted, and that is the reason why so many people are outraged and lack empathy when it happens in the other direction, because we're voiceless, we're not seen, we're not heard, and we're not respected, and our bodies mean nothing. And if that means nothing to you, then you are part of the problem. All of this shit is sick. Just as many people came on my Facebook page to use this as an example to justify what happened yesterday, and I deleted their asses too, because the problem is that we lack empathy. All of it is wrong. All of it is wrong. And if you think it's cool to fuck with somebody who's mentally disturbed, then you're just as sick. And that is our problem. We lack empathy. So please stay away from me. Don't tweet me with the bullshit, because I'm on fire like this one today.
I didn't know I was on fire.
You were on fire. You're on fire. We have many witnesses. And also, it's possible that John Howard, to do something like this, I want to find out what's happening at that kid's house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I want to see if that kid's been the victim of sexual assault.
Yeah.
Playing the numbers, it's very possible. And if so, like it is a consistent approach that I feel like everyone has going into these things. Let's find out all the facts. Let's not just say 300 hours of community service. Let's get to the bottom of it. And to further illuminate the hate crime aspect of it, according to KTVB News, the ringleader Howard also posted a Confederate flag on the plaintiff's computer and demanded that he learn to recite a racist song called Moon Man, Notorious KKK.
Get the full 2-hour show ad-free. Become a member, tytnetwork.com/join.